In this video, we will learn how to classify blood groups and why this classification is important. In addition, we will learn how to apply this knowledge of blood groups and rhesus factors to practice medicine safely. The blood that travels in the human body is incredibly important. It's made of two main components, a fluid called plasma and blood cells. It delivers nutrients to cells as needed and oxygen needed for the cell's survival, and helps to remove waste products from cells, including carbon dioxide. If someone has an accident and loses a lot of blood, these functions might not operate effectively. In this case, it might be necessary to transfuse some blood that was donated from another person in order for the cells to still receive everything they need for survival. However, not every person can give blood to a person in need. If a patient receives blood from the wrong person, this can lead to serious complications and even death. So why is this? It's because different people can have different blood groups. And if the donor and recipient aren't matched properly, this can cause serious problems. The classification of a person's blood group depends on two different substances found in their blood, antigens and antibodies. Antigens are substances that can cause an immune response in the body. This means that some antigens are recognized as foreign and the body can attack them. One of the ways the body fights antigens is by making special proteins called antibodies. Antibodies are produced by the immune system to attach to one specific type of antigen. This helps the immune system identify and destroy foreign cells or structures. Now let's look at the different blood groups and see what kind of antigens and antibodies we see. There are 4 different blood groups in humans: A, B, AB, and O. They're named this way because of the antigen they have on the surface of the red blood cell. Blood group A has the type A antigen on its surface. Each antigen is coded by different alleles or versions of the same gene. For the type A antigen, it's encoded by the IA allele. So for someone with blood group A, they have 2 copies of the IA allele that make the type A antigen. There's another possibility here also, that they have the IA allele and the IO allele, but we'll discuss that in a moment. People with blood group B have the type B antigen on the surface of the red blood cells. This antigen is coded by the IB allele. So people with blood group B will either have 2 copies of the IB allele or 1 copy of the IB allele and 1 copy of the IO allele. People with blood group AB have the type A antigen and the type B antigen on the surface of the red blood cells. They have both. This happens when the person has the genotype IA-IB. This is interesting because often when a person has 2 different alleles of a gene, one often dominates over the other, and only the phenotype caused by this allele is shown. In this particular case, neither allele IA nor IB is dominant over the other one. So both alleles are expressed. This is called codominance. Finally, in blood group O, neither type A nor type B antigens are present. This is caused by the IO allele, which is recessive and doesn't produce a functional antigen. These individuals have 2 copies of the IO allele. Since IO doesn't produce any functional antigen, when it's combined with IA, only the IA allele produces a type A antigen. So this is why the combination of IA and IO can give blood group A. And the same applies for blood group B. As mentioned, the classification of a person's blood group depends on 2 substances found in their blood: antigens and antibodies. The antibodies present in the blood can be divided into 2 types: anti-A and anti-B. Antibodies are produced when something foreign is introduced into the body. Anti means against. So for someone with blood group A, they will produce type A antigens on the surface of their red blood cells. These type A antigens aren't foreign, so anti-A antibodies wouldn't be produced. Instead, type B antigens would be foreign, so anti-B antibodies would be produced. The same can be said for someone with blood group B. They'll contain type B antigens, so they won't produce anti-B antibodies, but will instead produce anti-A antibodies, because the type A antigen would be foreign. So this answers the question we had at the beginning of the video, which asked why not every patient can receive blood from any donor. If someone with blood group A were to donate to someone with blood group B, this person's immune system would recognize the blood as foreign and produce anti-A antibodies to fight against it. These anti-A antibodies would destroy all the donor's red blood cells, and the blood transfusion would be rejected. So what about blood group AB? Because the red blood cells of blood group AB present both type A and type B antigens, neither anti-A nor anti-B antibodies will be produced. And in blood group O, which doesn't produce either A or B antigens, both anti-A and anti-B antibodies will be produced. Now let's look and see what blood groups are compatible for blood transfusions. Everyone is able to receive blood from their own blood group. However, some people can also receive blood from other blood groups. Because blood group AB doesn't produce antibodies against type A or type B antigens, it can receive blood from any of the other blood groups. People with blood group AB are therefore sometimes called universal receivers. Because blood group O doesn't have any antigens on its red blood cells, any blood group can receive blood from blood group O because the immune system will not produce antibodies against it. People with blood group O are therefore sometimes called universal donors. Now that we know what blood groups are and how they're defined, how can we find out what blood group a patient has? We can do this through a phenomenon called agglutination. As mentioned, anti-A antibodies will bind to the type A antigen found in someone with blood group A. Notice that this antibody has another site to bind antigen. And, of course, multiple antibodies can bind to antigen on multiple red blood cells. By forming these complexes between the red blood cells and the antibodies, the blood will begin to clump or agglutinate. So, to determine what blood group a person has, we can simply take some blood and mix it with anti-A antibodies and anti-B antibodies. So if we take a drop of blood from blood group A, and then mix in some anti-A antibody, the type A antigens on the red blood cells of blood group A will bind to the anti-A antibody. This will cause the blood to form clumps. So then what happens if we take a drop of blood group A and then mix it with anti-B antibodies? Well, nothing really, because the anti-B antibody can't recognize the type A antigen, so it doesn't bind. The anti-B antibody will only recognize a type B antigen. So in this example, the drop of blood will not clump. But when we take a drop of blood group B and mix it with anti-B antibody, the anti-B antibody can bind to the type B antigen on this blood group, which we can see here. This causes the blood to clump, and if we mix blood group B with the anti-A antibody, the anti-A antibody won't recognize the type B antigen, so it will not clump. So, what about blood groups AB and O? Why don't you pause the video for a moment and see if you can work it out? Blood group AB has both type A antigen and type B antigen. So adding either anti-A antibodies or anti-B antibodies will cause the blood to clump. And in blood group O, there is no antigen present on the surface of the red blood cells. So adding either anti-A or anti-B antibodies will not cause the blood to clump. So by mixing drops of blood with anti-A and anti-B antibodies, we can determine which blood group the drop belongs to. By using our knowledge of blood groups and the alleles that determine them, we can use this information to figure out how blood groups are inherited. Here, we can draw out a Punnett square to see how these different alleles are inherited. The child always inherits one copy of an allele from each parent. The blue alleles are from the biological father, while the pink alleles are from the biological mother. The phenotype of the child, or the corresponding blood group based on the inherited alleles, is shown in orange. The IA and IB alleles are dominant, and they display codominance when inherited together to give the AB blood group. The IO allele is recessive, and you need 2 copies of it to get blood group O. Understanding this can help determine the paternity of a child in family disputes. So if the mother has blood group O, the father has blood group AB, and the child has blood group O, then the possible combinations of alleles from these parents can only give blood groups A and B. So in this case, the child with blood group O is very unlikely to be the biological child to this father. These alleles can give rise to different antigens, either type A or type B on the surface of red blood cells. There's another antigen we need to discuss called Rhesus factor. For the Rhesus factor antigens, there are only 2 choices. Either a person has these antigens on the surface of their red blood cells and is Rh positive, or does not have these antigens and is Rh negative. Understanding Rhesus factors is incredibly important. A person with Rh negative blood should only receive blood transfusions that are also Rh negative. Otherwise, antibodies will form against the Rhesus antigen, and this will lead to rejection of the blood transfusion. Rhesus factor is also important to consider during pregnancy. So if a male who's Rh positive and a female who's Rh negative conceive an Rh positive child, the mother's blood may start to mix with that of the unborn child by the placenta. Her immune system will then produce antibodies against the baby's Rh positive blood. If this is a first-time pregnancy, then this is likely to be okay. However, if she becomes pregnant a second time with an Rh positive baby, then these antibodies might target the fetus and lead to complications. This can be prevented by treating the mother with a special serum that prevents her immune system from developing antibodies against the Rh antigens in the baby's blood. Now let's take a moment to apply what we've learned with a practice question. Blood can be transfused between individuals. The diagram provided shows which blood group can receive blood from or donate blood to other groups. A student says, people with blood group A can receive blood from any other blood group. Are they correct? Why? A. No, as people with blood group A cannot receive blood from those with blood group AB or group B. B. No, as people with blood group A cannot receive blood from those with group O or group AB. Or C. Yes, as the diagram demonstrates that all other blood groups can donate blood to group A. In order to answer this question, let's look at how these different blood groups are classified. Before we can do this, let's first clear the answer choices so we have more room to work with. There are 4 different blood groups, A, B, AB, and O. Someone with blood group A has red blood cells with type A antigen present on their surface. Someone with blood group B has red blood cells with type B antigens present on their surface. You may have already guessed it, but someone with blood group AB has red blood cells with type A and type B antigens present on their surface. And finally, someone with blood group O has red blood cells with neither type A nor type B antigens present on their surface. For each blood group, there are also different antibodies that are present. In blood group A, there are anti-B antibodies. These anti-B antibodies have a specific shape that allows them to bind specifically to type B antigen. When this happens, an immune response is initiated and the red blood cell is destroyed. So people with blood group A can't receive blood from blood group B because these anti-B antibodies would destroy those red blood cells. And the same is true for blood group AB because they also contain type B antigens. However, anti-B antibody can't bind to the person's own type A antigen because the antigen isn't compatible with this antibody. In someone with blood group B, they have anti-A antibodies which would react with any red blood cells that carry the type A antigen. So someone with blood group B would not be able to accept donations from those in blood group A or blood group AB because they carry the type A antigen. A person with blood group AB contains neither anti-A nor anti-B antibodies. If they did, then these antibodies would attack their own red blood cells. Because they don't have any anti-A or anti-B antibodies, this person can receive blood from any blood group. Finally, a person with blood group O has both anti-A and anti-B antibodies. So they would only be able to receive blood from blood group O. And since they don't have any antibodies, they can donate to any of the blood groups. All of this is indicated in the provided diagram. O is able to donate blood to any blood group, while AB is able to receive blood from any blood group. And groups A and B can only receive blood from O or from their own blood group. So if we look at the statement in this question that people with blood group A can receive blood from any other blood group, this is incorrect because blood group A can't receive blood from groups AB or B. Now let's take a moment to go over the key points in this video. The human blood groups are A, B, AB, and O. Blood groups are classified based on antigens on the surface of red blood cells and antibodies. We can use agglutination to determine blood groups. Not all blood groups are compatible, and this can cause serious harm if it isn't considered. The antigens for blood groups are encoded by different alleles which have a predictable pattern of inheritance. Rhesus factor is another antigen that needs to be considered during pregnancy and blood transfusions.